What up? What up? What up? It is a very special late night episode of the Shark Cove, a somber Shark Cove for those of us who grew up around Metro Detroit and had high hopes for the Lions team. But look, at the end of the day, for those of us that hold Jaden Daniels rookie cards, feels like they're going up in value. So I don't have a ton of them, only like 12. So, look, it's not it's not the way that I wanted today to end, but just trying to look at the positive, feel blessed in some ways, and let's move on. I've got Mike joining me. Mike is a member of the Pater Discord and recently came over to the Top Esports, or not Top Esports, it's the esports department, almost the similar kind of abbreviations. I get that mixed up all the time, but Mike, no camera, but welcome to the Cove.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of like Top Esports.
Kind of, yeah. 3-0 sweeps, right?
Yeah.
Well, so, this isn't going to be a long show, guys. I mean, it's kind of late. We're button up against, technically we could probably run this till 1 a.m. till the start of the slate, but we're not going to do that. We're going to talk briefly here about the LCK. It's not an overly exciting DFS slate. It's not necessarily all that exciting from a betting standpoint. There are some spots that perhaps are interesting in props, but we don't have a ton of data on some of these teams, and that is something that is going to go by the wayside pretty soon here as we get second and third games for teams, or second or third series, I should say, which in some cases will give us 4, 5, 6 games. But let's start it off, Mike. Let's kind of run through these because I know you want to get to the LEC just like I do. But we've got KT playing Hanwha in what is the most interesting of the two series. KT is a huge dog here at plus 400. I guess the concern, the question, and how it looks for me is like this Hanwha team got thoroughly handled in their first series, but that first series was against Gen G. KT was a team that struggled with a much inferior opponent in Fear X, BNK Fear, whatever you want to call them. Do you see KT winning a game here? Do you see this as being a bloody series? What's your kind of overall take and kind of feel for these two teams this early in the season?
Well, I still feel like HLE is going to have like something similar to what the casters even on the T1 games have said so far, where like they have to figure out like how they want to draft with like Zayas being added to the team. Similar to like T1, they have to figure out how to like draft with Doran being added to the team, and how they're going to like mesh that out. And I don't really see why KT is like so far down in like odds here, because I mean, I guess they have like the memes and whatever, but like BDD is great. Duck Tom's not they got Duck Tom right in the
that's right.
Yeah, yep. So he's not horrible. So yeah, I don't really see why they're such a big dog, but pretty much for me, like getting this spot right is the more important side of the two gamer. Because obviously Genji's just going to roll through BNK. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the thought here is I don't know if I feel as good about getting that plus 115. I'm not sure I want to take that spot. I think that if I was betting a spot in here, I mean, look, Hanwha's good. Like you said, there are some problems in terms of how perhaps they're going to draft, how they're going to handle it. Obviously, the added element of Fearless kind of changes it a bit. And this is, let's face it, not exactly I think, meta that suits them per se. I mean, I think it's one that they can grow into, but I don't think that their strengths are necessarily the S tier meta champion. So, I mean, I guess if you don't believe in them, I didn't really catch the first series. There are some games I need to catch up on. So I don't have an opinion how they played that. I'm looking at this 23.5 game total, and I'm thinking that perhaps that's a spot that I might want to go to. We look at like the KT series; those all went over 23 against Fear, but I think that's more of a Fear thing. The HLCL series, 12 in that first game, 35 in the second. I guess on second thought, I'm going to pass. I'm going to absolve myself and say I want no part of this. Just a full pass for me.
Yeah. I also don't really see. I don't think KT's gonna let Zeka get any of his like pocket like melee picks. Because BDD doesn't really specialize in any of that lately over the last like year or so, 2 years. Like he'll probably just get like a Azir or Victor or whatever, and then like they're not gonna give Zeka like the One or Akali or probably Silas or anything like that. So
yeah, not particularly an exciting one. I think when we look at where's the, I'll pull it up right now. We look at Prizepicks. Let's go look at what their lines are. Should have this up. Maps 1 through 2 kills. 8.5, 9.5, 4.5. I think that's kind of in line with what I would think. Look, the one guy that I do think is interesting is Wei. Wei is, and this is Wei spelled W-A-Y.
yeah.
I guess there's a lot of ways now, but I like some of his assist props if you think that they're going to win. But even in a loss, as long as they can keep it competitive, I think 14.5 is definitely a number that I foresee him being able to hit. Again, I'm not betting it. I think that if you do need some action out of that game and you want to find one singular prop, that perhaps is one of the things that I would look at, I guess. But nevertheless, let's move on.
BDD actually played Yone game 1 in their first game, and he went 8-1.
Yeah, I mean, against.
Granted, it's like against Vikla and like Raptor, but
yeah, it's a different ball game. This is one that I'm willing to. I think there are some other spots that I want to put my equity into. I'm just going to kind of skip this now. When we get to the Genji Fear X situation here, I guess I have to ask you, how do you see these? If you had to predict scores, I think we're both in agreement. I believe Genji wins both of these games. I believe that they do it relatively easily, but do they toy with Fear
I think
X?
one of the games they're gonna do kind of like a screw around game, like a Dom 1 type draft, and just like mess around and whatever. I don't think they're gonna like just steamroll through both games with like 2 traditional drafts and that's it.
Well, I guess my question then is, do you see this being like a 12, 14, 15 kill Genji win? Or do you see this being perhaps something that gets up into the 20s? One of the things that I've looked at is I foresaw some of these games sometimes maybe taking longer, but it seemed like some of the total winning scores or winning kill lines were a little bit lower. But in the LPL, they seem to be around 19 to 20 as an average. Genji had a stark difference between their two games. I think it was like 12 and 22. Hang on.
Yeah, it's 10 to 2 in the first one.
10 to 2 and 27 to 8.
And then in the second one, they had 27 and Ruler had 13 kills on Jinx.
Yeah, and when KT played Fear, they put up 27, they put up 16. So my point being this, here's the one prop I was looking at earlier. I was looking at this one right here in a 2-0. Now this is just for the first 2 games, looking at like a Ruler fantasy point 69.5, looking at a Chovy fantasy point 66.2. If we go to the projections, and yes, I have projections for it.
Ruler 9.5 kills seems like pretty easy.
Yeah, well, I guess the way that I would look at that is, let's say they put up 30 kills. He has 30%. Yeah, I mean, I think so. 30% kill 30% kill share on 30 kills. That puts him right at 9, so right there in that realm. So you're just kind of hoping for a 1 extra or kind of a bonkers game. What I will say is that I kind of tend to think that this is one of the teams that you can target that is going to bring your kill share up. They're a team that's going to feed. I think it's going to be Bro when they lose. I think it's going to be Fear when they lose. And my point being that, like, on a, let's see, what does he have here? when we look at free rolls, I think he is assuming 21, 22, 23, 30, like a 34 to 35 kills. And then he's got Ruler at 70. He's got Chovy at 59. I think it's pretty close. I think you could take the 9.5. If you don't want to pay that multiplier, I think the 69.5 on Ruler is kind of the place that I would attack. So, again, not particularly an exciting series.
Yeah. For their fantasy points, like how do they map it? Does it give you like the bonuses or no?
No, it doesn't give you the bonuses.
Okay.
Well, let's move on to the LPL. We talked about this a little bit yesterday on the show. We've got Invictus versus NIP. These are two teams that haven't played yet. Invictus tends to be a team that is going to play a little bit faster, is going to int, it's going to die, they're going to get kills. NIP has that kind of that same reputation, although some of the parts of this team are a little different. We do have map totals of 27.5. I think that's kind of low. Oh, you know what? That was the other thing that I wanted to say, that Genji Fear X, we have 22 kill totals. I think I would take the over on map 1, map 2 on both of those. Or you just pick one, and if it's kind of like the same thing like with the HLE, which is something that I've seen before, where you think that they're going to have kind of a slower one of the games, you're just going to have to kind of guess which one that's going to be, because if you're betting both, you're just kind of losing the vids, and it doesn't work that way. So let's talk LPL. What's your take on this? Do we think that NIP comes out and wins this? Doinbe's return, they are plus 275. I think that it's just hard to bet Invictus as minus 400 favorites.
I don't really see NIP doing much of. I mean, I could feel like they could take a game, but I don't really see them winning. Like that, I think they downgraded at almost like everything, didn't they? Like Leave is like
you got Shanji and Aki, but then you've got Doinbe, Leave, PP God. I think Leave is good. I mean,
Leave is probably a upgrade from like a slight upgrade from how Photic was last year. Like Photic was, everybody wanted Photic to put up 100 every game, and they just kept losing.
Yeah, I think you do improve in your bot lane here. You got Leave and PP God over Photic and Ju, and I think Doinbe's obviously probably a step down from Rookie. I mean, you could argue that at their peak they're probably pretty similar, but Doinbe's been removed from the scene for a little bit. But look, I think that the Fearless draft style is something that plays right into Doinbe's kind of champ pool, and this is a guy that is known for playing some of those different picks and having different styles and not being kind of locked in on mages or locked in on assassins, being able to play Galio, who's incredibly strong right now. So I don't know, plus 275, I think that's kind of crazy. Plus 1.5, plus 125. I think I'm taking some of these bets on ninjas, and just hoping that the market is wrong here. I just don't trust Invictus. I think they're a fun team, but I don't necessarily think that they're I don't know. I think some of the same concerns that you have with Doinbe you can have with the Shy. And for what it's worth, I think Rookie operates a little bit more on reputation than he does talent these days. He's obviously very good, but he's not S tier anymore. He has those games, he has those times, just not consistent, and I think that's part of what you need to be that. We gave some props yesterday in terms of what we're looking at here. You've got the Shy deaths. Let's take a look at that.
That's the first thing I was thinking.
8 deaths seems like kind of a number that I might be interested in, especially if I'm somebody that thinks NIP is going to win at least one game. Let's take a look what we've got on the projections for that. So in a
he'll probably hit 8 deaths and a 3-0, honestly.
In a 2-1, we have 10 deaths, and a 3-0, he's projected for 9. So I think that is going to be one that we're just going to go ahead and we're going to lock in here. We're going to go ahead and we're going to build a little parlay on the show here. We're going to take ruler over 9.5. We're going to build the shy right there. Anything else kind of stand out to you? And I'm looking at this, leave 10.5, rookie 13.5. I think free rolls yesterday wanted to go lower on that. Let's kind of just assume 2-1.
Gala in 3 games, even if it's 2-1, should get 15.
I think we have it as a 12. I think the way that I guess I would look at that is if it's 2-1, you're probably looking at 50 kills, approximately 50 kills. Let's say, yeah, like a 15. I think the number's good. And paying to try and take an over at 0.8 multiplier. Yeah, I think I'll pass. That might have been a number that you had to get earlier to be advantageous. I think maybe if you think that they win like game 1 or game 2 or game 3, I don't know. I think you kind of pick where you think that they're going to win. If you think, or just get lucky and take one of these 4.5 overs, because that's probably your best bet. And truthfully, if you think they go 2-1, you have a 66% chance of getting it right. But I'm going to pass on all of that. I think that this series ends up ultimately being a 5-game series. I'm just going to go ahead and give the nod to Nip. I wouldn't be surprised if they get 3-0 swept, and I'm completely off base on that. But any other thoughts on that before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes, the DFS side, the side that I know you and I were waiting for payouts. So any other thoughts
yeah, no,
there?
that's fine.
Okay. One other thing, the LCP slapped for us in props yesterday. We are still going to ride with the Jungia under 17.5. I have it on a couple other slips, so I'm not going to put it here. But, one of the things that, I think people overestimate sometimes the kills that like a PSG or no longer PSG talent will get. They played 2 slow games. They played 2 clean games. In fact, they didn't die in game 2. But Betty got nowhere near his kill total. Surprisingly, Arya got O2'd. So, a Japan team getting beaten by a Vietnam team, and not even a top-level Vietnam team. I think like a third-tier Vietnam team in 2-0'd. That was surprising. But I do like the Jungia 17.5. I think that for him to get 17.5 assists, they'd have to have 2 bloody wins. I think it's very, very possible that they lose one of these games, or we see a kind of lower kill total as we've seen in some of these games in some of these other regions that isn't the LPL. Hey, speaking of slow games, let's talk about Rogue, man. That Rogue game earlier today, we got the execute first kill in the first team fight, like 30 minutes into the game. Pretty much a kind of a disappointing way for that to go. But do we go right back to Rogue here? I think that, man, Rogue
They
versus
are
GNX.
oddly like big. I mean, for LEC game best of ones, dogs here.
Yeah.
I know Giant X like looked really good, but I don't know if I feel like that should be a good match.
Pull it up here.
I don't really know a lot about Lot, but I feel like Closer going from NA games that he was in, when his teams lose, he kind of dies a lot. I feel like Jackie's really good. He was probably like the standout of the team last year. That's probably why they only kept him. But Larson's gonna play your standard control mage and sit there and farm for the whole game.
Yeah, I don't think in a best of one that you can really look at one team off of a 1-game sample size, mark them as a minus 230 favorite. The other team that has, quite a few veterans on it, for all intents and purposes, I thought played kind of the game that they wanted to. It was well controlled. It just wasn't fun for DFS. And
Yeah.
I don't know. They controlled objectives. They did what they wanted to do. I think that that's going to be their identity. I'm probably interested in, I don't know, taking They fixed the kill total at 23. I don't think I really want to go much there. I'm going to take Rogue plus 175. I'm going to be okay with that in terms of props and DFS. Let's kind of pop into that. DFS, they are, like obviously being one of the bigger dogs, they're one of the cheaper ones to put on there. But I don't know, a 23 kill total. I think that there are probably other places. If you're playing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lineups, I think you do put a rogue lineup in there. Maybe two. You put one with Casey, one with Koi. Kind of just get both sides of a game that I don't know, looks kind of bloody. I feel like most people that are going to play Rogue are probably going to pair them with G2. That makes sense. That's kind of like a safety thing. A lot of times when people want to play dogs, they want to feel safe, but that's not the way that you win. You win with double dogs. That's 100% the strategy. When we look at kind of this this prop thing, I still think I'm going to take Adam over 1.5. I think you can take Malrang over 5.5. Execute over half a kill here at 1.25 multiplier. Look, if I'm taking anything here, and I do have it on other tickets, so I'm not building it into our parlay, I'm taking Adam over 1.5. I'm taking Execute on a sub kill ticket at that 1.25 multiplier.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Let's get to the first game. Team Heretics. Didn't look as bad as I thought. They're a dog here. SK, I didn't catch the game against Giant X. I looked at the kill total. I don't know. You tell me. Is that game worth me going back and watching? Because it sure doesn't look like it from a 19-2 end total.
So I didn't get to physically watch any of the games just being at work today, but just like going off like kill totals and stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like this Heretics lineup is like more, it might be more controlled, or it might have just gotten like the rogue treatment. Which if that game goes under on tomorrow, it could be like the best spot, because it could be like a normal Heretics game where there's like, 40 kills and it just blows up. But I don't know if I don't know if SK's like can bring it out of them, because SK's, I don't know, this kind of team's kind of shit. Like they kind of kept Brahel, which is good, but I don't think anybody else is really worth anything. Like Isma is like whatever. Gen X is whatever. I don't really know about Reeker or Loopy, but
I mean, I think you see a lot of guys that are kind of, I don't know. It's a lineup of a lot of guys that have failed at the LEC level, getting another chance. I think, Reeker is a guy that kind of deserved it. I'm not sure some of these other guys deserved another run here, whether it's through renewal or, call up. They died a ton here. I didn't get to see the game. What I will say is I watched a lot of the Team Heretics game against Rogue. Man, there were a couple like team fights where if it wasn't for a top level play by Execute, I think that maybe it was the third dragon fight. But Sten was in the northeast, right? In the northeast, so the red side, lower jungle, and not on vision, ready to come in on Rel, and it would have been like a 5-man alt coming over. But just a split second as he came into vision, Execute headbutted him out of there. Ended up being, I think, a neutral fight. I do believe that Rogue, I think it was the third dragon, they ended up winning it. Nobody died, or maybe just Execute died. So I don't know. I kind of give Heretics the nod here. I think both of these teams are kind of bottom of the barrel when it comes to LEC. I'm interested in Heretics, and this is like, one of the things I've always loved to attack is this first game, because as often as it is a dud, especially with bad teams, it can be one killer game. How many times have you watched LEC and the first game you're like, fuck, I'm dead. I'm dead, because
you turn it off for the rest of the day because it's over.
It goes absolutely bonkers. And then there's like 2 other games, and that's not even optimal. But this feels like one of those games where both of the teams are bad. Nobody can end. There's going to be skirmishes. And one of the things that you see with bad teams that are at least willing to fight, you don't see the disengages like you do in the LCK, where nobody dies in the team fights. There's just a lot of damage traded. Instead, you lose 2 or 3 lives, and it kind of trickles up, and you get a game that potentially you could even game stack, perhaps. So let's kind of go ahead and
Yeah,
make a bet on this. I think that I'm backing Heretics. I'm
yeah.
thinking that
I'm big on the first game. I think it's going to go pretty under. I think most of the ownership on the day is going to be on the Koi and KC game as like a split. And then people just pick G2 because of the name. Um, and then probably Fnatic because they're a big favorite over Vitality. I think that's like the three like chalk areas. And then I think people are going to look at Rogue and Giant X and probably go lower just because they think Rogue is going to just slow play it. But if we're on the Rogue side, I think we can get something big out of that. And then I just think we go the first game and get the surprise like Heretics game, and they just like that game just blows up on maybe both sides.
All right. Well, here's the question I'm going to pose to you. Do I take the ISMA over 1.5 deaths at a 0.84 multiplier, or do I take the Loopy over 2.5 deaths at a 1.13 multiplier?
I mean, that guy just died 5 times in a game.
They both did. They both
yeah,
did.
but like he just died 5 times in like a game that's like not. Yeah.
Died 5 times on.
I mean, I just feel like the support. They're not going to put him on Braum again. I think they're going to go like. I feel like normally when you lose, you don't go on something that's like more passive, like Braum or like a Lulu or something like that. You're not going to probably go back to that. So they'll probably be like, all right, we want to be more proactive, and then I think him over 2.5 deaths or being like the higher multiplier is better.
Yeah, I think it's a big enough.
Because even in a win, they're probably going to die. He's probably going to die 3 times, like no matter what. Just picking an engage. I don't really see them being like a landslide, like clean win.
Yeah, going back and looking at his match history, he doesn't tend to die a lot. But I mean, we're talking LLA, dies a lot in losses. Sometimes he's a little cleaner in wins. I think LLA is a little bit different. Does play a lot of engaged supports though. So I mean, we're talking Rakan, Alistair.
Oh, so then he's definitely not playing. He's definitely playing one
Poppy. Yeah, so he's going to play an engaged support if they lose. I'm going to take over 2.5. I think the ISMA is something that I would put on maybe another ticket, but we're going to take that. We want that multiplier.
ISMA's on your safe ticket.
Yeah. Maybe you put a little bit higher. This is going to be a kind of a big ticket, so we're going to need some of that. I don't know. 2.5 is not that much different. 3 deaths for a support. If they lose, it doesn't matter. I don't know what we're talking about here. I think it's just the safety if they win. I think ISMA probably dies 2 times, win or loss. But realistically, Loopy probably dies 3 times. Playing a Leona, Alistar, Nautilus, Rakan. Those are champions that tend to find themselves in bad spots.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about a true game stack game. Feeling pretty good about myself. I called both of these as winners. I did make a KC Koi stack in DFS. They were super cheap. I just didn't make the right one.
Yeah,
I think
you probably didn't have BDS as your team one off either, like some idiot.
True. I did not. How do you think this one goes? I'll leave it to you. I do have some pretty strong opinions. I didn't catch the whole Mad Lions game. I caught more of the KC game. Just initial thoughts. Who do you think wins this game? When we're talking favorites, we do have we have it as a pick 'em.
I want to lean KC just because I think the yike factor. But it's hard to I don't know. It's hard to bet against Supa. And I don't know how good JoJo's. I mean, he was good against Humanoid, but Humanoid just, I don't know. And upset picked the MF, so I don't even know what that was about. But this is going to be a really good game. I think it's going to be a banger. I don't think anybody's going to really one-side it. But I think I want to lean more towards KC with Yike. I just feel like Yike always has Elyoya's number, so.
Fair. I think he's had a surrounding cast that was a little bit better in those situations. We do have a question from the comments. Summary of the squares you like. Hey, I'm going to put something up in on my Twitter after we're done with this. I'll post the ticket that we do as well. I don't think that there was a ton that we don't have on the ticket, but there are a couple of them. So I'll kind of summarize it in a post on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. TikTok is dead, and that is it's a sad day. It's a sad day for at least a day at this point. But yeah, look, hey, I wouldn't be surprised if KC won this game. I think that they kind of got bailed out in a couple situations by some Baron steals. Luckily for me, luckily for my calls, Yike did get a ton of kills. Especially even on a Sejuani, but I was kind of surprised that that's the route that they played. But I totally get it. There's a lot of there are a lot of capable hands on the KC side of things. It was their first game, but I'm rocking Koi here. I think Koi wins this. I think, again, I said it yesterday. I think they're probably the best team in the LEC. Wouldn't be surprised if KC takes it, but one of the nice things is the way that this is put together in odds. I mean, both of these teams are playable in DFS with just about anybody. Both of these teams are pretty playable in prop betting here. I think I'm going to take an Aloya over 1.5 and just hope he doesn't roll an Ivern. That's kind of the way that I feel. And if you feel like he is going to roll an Ivern, or if that's a concern and you believe Koi wins, take the 7.5 on the assist. We said it yesterday, but I think those numbers are just too low. Same can be said if you feel like Mike is correct in all of this. The 1.5 for Yike seems pretty low. 6.5 seems pretty low. Those are both numbers that I would attack. I think that this game ends up being fairly bloody. And in that, I think you can also take over 2.5 deaths on Alvaro. You could take it on Targamas, certainly, who just barely got there today. The other prop that jumped out at me, although the multiplier kind of sucks, is this Canna 1.5. Man, if we could get is going to take turret plates prop, I would take Canna on the over every single time. So,
Yeah.
Did you catch that game? I know you said you were working, but was this game one that you were able to catch or no?
No, I caught the first half of the Movistar game when I was on lunch.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I wasn't able to actually watch this game either.
This was one where the casters were talking. Dak was talking about Canna being so far behind in experience. I mean, he was literally a level down. We're talking level 3 and 4. Chase versus a Gragas because of a lane swap, and I'm like, I think we're kind of overblowing the situation here.
Yeah.
Didn't really seem like it was that big of a deal, but we're not going to put anything on this ticket. Again, I'm not trying to make this an 8-man ticket, so I think we're going to say, actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead, put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to put some Aloya over 1.5. From a DFS perspective, I think both of these teams will kind of cancel each other out. And we get into the game that I think is going to be the highest owned, G2 over BDS. This BDS team did not look good for all intents and purposes. G2 looked good. They lost. They played against a KC team that I do think is pretty good, albeit I just picked them to lose. My question to you is, in the DFS world, is this a smash BDS spot if you've ever seen one?
I have to make a lineup with them tomorrow.
Maybe a BDS rogue to get a little crazy, right?
Yeah, anything with them. I have to make a BDS lineup tomorrow, because if I don't, Ice is gonna have 13 kills, and Nuke will have 8.
Yeah, Nuke over 2.5. If you think if you're not playing DFS on DraftKings and you're looking just for squares, a Nuke 2.5 is a way to kind of get some exposure to a dog here. Look, I guess the thought process that you have with this on DraftKings is, look, when teams beat G2, they beat them with a lot of kills. It's not because they play a clean macro game. G2 gives over a lot of kills and wins and losses. This BDS team, I think, is a little bit more scrappy than BDS teams than that we've seen in the past. I think they're probably a little more willing to fight. Yeah, look, the result wasn't there today, and that's okay. They lost to Vitality. Maybe we thought Vitality was a little bit worse than they were. maybe a little bit different, but they were still scrappy, right? They still put up 7 kills.
I know Linkus was like supposed to be this big, like sought after jungle free agent, so I know that's probably a big part of it. Plus he got Ivern, and the champion's always good in LEC. And then Carzzy picked Corki, which has like dominated solo queue for the past few months, and Ice played MF, and she doesn't really do anything in pro play unless she's piloted by like some insane team.
Yeah, it looks like they banned Ashe, they banned Faris, they banned out Irrelevant and kind of a blitz. So yeah, I mean Paris is pretty good too. So maybe they make some mistakes, maybe in the draft, maybe they make some of those changes. Again, I've always said that 113 is totally a guy that will win you games, he'll lose you games. I do think that like BDS loses here, so I'm not super on the side of the props. I did kind of mention them because they're out there. But if I was taking some props here, I don't know if the nuke 2.5 now, as I think about it, is exactly where I'd want to go. I don't have too much issue with that. I think the BDS over or the 113 over 1.5 kills because of the multiplier is good. But I will tell you the one that I have put on a couple slips so far is the 2.5 deaths and over. This dude fucking dies a lot, man.
Yeah.
3 deaths is light work for him. So, against a G2 team that likewise, if they end up winning, they're probably going to put up 16, 17, 18, 19 kills. They do have those games where they only put up 12. I don't think this is one of those. Hope it isn't one of those.
I don't really think this is like a meta that's going to happen much with G2. They don't have a lot of experimenting.
Okay.
I don't know how much they're going to be able to cook. Like, last split, or I don't know if it was last split that they played in LEC, but it was more like they always kept drafting like Kog'Maw Braum. And then I know BB was playing like the Rek'Sai thing when it was ridiculous, but so all those games were like no kills, but I don't really see much of that happening this time. Like in the loss today, Caps had 7 other kills on Akali, so I think I just hope that when I don't pick them, because I feel like you can't ever win when you pick them, that they don't go off.
Yeah, you do have a high, a death multiply here, 2.5 on the Brav. I think that might be interesting. So I think there's a lot of places that you can go to. Not going to put one particularly on here. We're going to get to the last game here, running a little longer than I thought, but that's okay. We're at the end of this. Talk a little bit about Vitality and Fnatic. I wasn't big on Fnatic yesterday. I think that they end up possibly winning, or is Vitality just the surprise team of the split, at least the early part of it?
I'm still with you that upset sucks. Well, no, maybe not sucks, but overrated. And I think Vitality's. I think they're gonna just come out and just be the 1% owned team tomorrow.
Interesting. Even though
I don't really see Fnatic like popping off like that tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, Vitality comes off of a win. You think that they're really going to be that low owned? I mean, I guess there are a lot of other places that you can spend salary, but do you think that's just what it is? Is that people are going to rotate with like Vitality, Heretics? You've got Koi and KC, and so each one of them kind of cannibalizes each other's ownership, and people are going to pair them with G2. Especially like, look, Fnatic is the most expensive in DFS. That's sometimes somebody I like to go to if it's not like a no-brainer, because people don't want to play it, but like there's enough salary on this slate that you can play Fnatic pretty easily if you wanted to with like an ADC captain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still pretty sure that the KC Koi game is probably going to be KC Koi and G2 are going to be the 3 highest. Then I think like Fnatic comes in after that in like the middle area, and then everything else is like pretty low. BDS is going to be nothing because they look like shit today. So and then probably get some 8 to 10s on like Heretics the road game, or Heretics and SK. And then I don't think many people are going to believe in Vitality over Fnatic. I know Fnatic like lost, but they'll probably just be like, oh, they lost to the best team, so, or one of the best teams.
All right, fair enough. Well, I'm going to add Mickey X. You know what? No, I'm going to add Linkus over 5.5. We're going to put that on the ticket. I do love the Mickey X over 2.5 deaths. He's done a couple slips that I've built already.
I feel like if they were really believed to be that high of a favorite, just based on like everything else that I've like seen you pull up, like that his multiplier on 2.5 deaths would be higher.
Well, they're a minus 275. That makes them the largest favorite on the slate. Vitality at a plus 200. I think, like Vitality played pretty well today. I think that could be hit or miss. I think some of these guys are just not consistent, and that's why they are who they are. But like I said, I'm going to take Linkus 5.5. I think that's a doable line if this game is bloody, even in the loss. And if they win, it's 100% going to get there. This is how many legs did we make
5.
this? Oh yeah, it says it right there. So 5, 20x. Not going to get crazy. We're just going to throw. We're just going to throw it on the 5 here. Perfect. Any final thoughts?
No. I think I just hope that I pick the right bloodiness tomorrow and don't have the wrong BDS one-off teams slot with Adam.
All right. Well, any stands that you want to take? Any proclamations that you want to make?
Casey with one of the first game stack wins tomorrow.
Casey
with one of Casey and one of the teams in the first game.
Casey and Heretics, Casey and SK. I like it. All right. Well, hey, it's been a short stream. I know I'm a little low energy. The Lions lost made me a little sad. Probably be back tomorrow and definitely be back on Monday at 4 p.m. I'm going to have James McCool from PayDirt. He's going to be joining me. We're going to be going over the revised tool. We've made a couple changes on that prop tool. It's going to be free to use. A lot of cool things that you're going to be able to put in there, from inputting your own predictions on game totals, but also prop checkers based on the numbers that you put in, based on the average numbers. So again, that prop tool can look like this. There's a lot of cool things that will go into that. So been refining it, finding the bugs, figuring out what it is. It's going to be ready to go for Monday. That means it'll be ready to go for the SVP picks. It'll be ready to go for the LE or the not the LEC, the NLC, and it will be ready for week 2 of LCK, week 2-3 of LPL. So pretty excited about that. I think it's going to give us a huge edge. That with kind of the projections that are out there from free rolls, there's no way we lose. Mike, hey, thanks for joining. I'm hitting the music. I will post everything that we're playing and talked about on Twitter. Later.
All right, brother.